Hello and welcome back to our mini true crime segment on Exploring with Ash and Jake. Today we're going to be talking about Fred and Rose West, i.e. the House of Horrors. If this sounds good, stay tuned. Frederick West, aka Frederick Walter Stephen West, let's go by his full name, was an English serial killer who committed at least 12 murders between 1967 and 1987 in Gloucestershire, the majority which was with his second wife, Rose West. All victims were young women. Fred West and Rose West killed victims for sexual gratification. Ages of the victims range from 18 to 21 years of age. His wife, Rose West, was convicted in November of 1995 of 10 murders and is now serving a whole life order. Many victims, including the couple's 16-year-old daughter, Heather, were buried at the House of Horrors home at 25 Cornell Street in Gloucester. In an interview disclosed there were more than 20 plus bodies buried in his barn. He also stated due to some rituals of the victims, their bones were missing. I believe when I was reading it said he practiced witchcraft or something online. Police suggest since the couple targeted easy prey, there could be many more victims. Secretly shot footage inside the derelict farmhouse where Fred West is suspected to have buried up to 20 more victims, and chilling video and pictures show fresh concrete that was laid on the floors, meaning Builder West could have used it to cover up the graves of many more young female victims. Frederick West killed himself at age 53 on January 1st, 1995 in prison, waiting for the trial for 12 murders between 1967 and 1997. So due to not enough people coming forward, it's actually unknown the exact number of bodies that Fred and Rose West have. On documented court record, it says there could be about between 12 and 20, but they did not even check the area where new cement was laid in his barn. So there could be 10 to 20 more potential victims laid to rest in the area where he had laid down wet cement. Court documented, though, purposes, there's only between 12 and 20 that we currently know of because no one else has come forward in this present case. Frederick West and Rose West ended up getting caught after police found human remains and apparent signs of torture at 25 Cromwell Street. Rose, along with Fred, was arrested in February of 1994. During her trial, Rose denied murdering any of the victims and insisted that her husband had committed all the crimes and acts alone. Police will not dig at the farm where Fred and Rose West victims are believed to be buried. Police have reportedly ruled out suggestions to dig up the land and farm in Berkeley, where as many as 20 victims of Fred and Rose West are believed to be buried. A program claims after 7-month-long probe that potential burial sites have been uncovered using ground-penetrating radar and dogs trained to detect human remains. Sir Trevor has urged police to investigate and evacuate the site, saying that there is still so much more murderous campaign of Fred and Rose West. After police spent at least $55,000 to evacuate land at a cafe in Gloucester in May, Fred West is thought to have killed a teenager and Mary Washolm in 1968 and hid her body at the Clean Plate Cafe, originally named Oasis Cafe, in Gloucester, but the investigation that involved digging in the cellar found no traces of any body. Now the Gloucester police are ruling out the possibility of digging up the property in any more areas, including the Gloucester Live. Police spokesman said, according to the news website, after careful assessment, we do not believe the evidence submitted to us at the time meets the threshold to justify further searches in locations identified. However, as with all cases, we will review any new evidence submitted to us. Now, I'm not saying the police are lazy, but after reading all the evidence, I'm saying I feel as though it was a half-assed job and a completely botched police investigation, because other people are coming forward with new information saying there are bodies buried here, and the police are just in a hurry to close this case. And so, because they choose not to spend any more money digging in these sites where victims are buried, we will never know how many other potential victims they are. And this is just sad, because those families don't get justice, those families don't get closure, and justice has not accurately been served. Although Frederick West is now dead, he was never really held accountable for his crimes. I mean, there are so many more victims out there that this is baffling, that to me, that families get the short end of the stick as it pertains to the justice system. While neither appeared to feel any remorse or guilt, as both most likely shared the same diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, details of their first arrest for sexual assault demonstrate who set the tone for the killing duo. In late 1972, they invited a young Caroline Odens to move in with them as their nanny. Rose West's lawyer warns that she has dementia and could see the killer finally reveal the true extent of wicked and vicious murders. Killer Rose West's former lawyer has revealed that her dementia means she may have admit horrific secrets before she dies. Rose is currently an inmate at HM Prison in Newhall Flockton, West Yorkshire, after being convicted in 1995 of 10 murders. Fred died by suicide in prison the same year while awaiting trial following the couple's 1994 arrest. The only confessions that Rose West ever made was that she admitted to her daughter Anne Marie was saying was true, and that Anne Marie was abused by her own dad, but the rest of the family has also tried to deny it. Rose's mother suffered from depression and was given electroconvulsive therapy both during and immediately after her pregnancy. Some have argued that this treatment may have caused prenatal development and injuries to her daughter. Rose grew up into a moody teenager prone to daydreaming and performing poorly at school. Rose's dad, who was prone to extreme violence and repeated sexual abuse of Rose and her older sister Patricia, also had paranoid schizophrenia. At the onset of puberty, Rose, reportedly fascinated by her developing body, would deliberately parade around naked or semi-naked around the house in the presence of her younger brother. And on numerous occasions at the age of 13, she would also creep into the 9-year-old Graham's bed at nightfall and molest him and her youngest brother, Gordon. So here's a little bit of a backstory on how Rose met Fred. Rose first encountered Fred West at a bus stop in 1969, shortly after she had turned 15. Rose had turned 15 and Fred was aged 27. Initially, Rose was repulsed by Fred's unkempt appearance, but quickly became flattered by the attention that he continued to lavish on her in the following days, as he invariably sat alongside her at the same bus stop. Rose twice refused to go on a date with Fred, but allowed her to accompany home. Having discovered Rose worked at a nearby bread shop, he persuaded an unknown woman to enter the premises and present her with a gift, accompanied by the explanation that a man outside had asked to present her this gift. Minutes later, Fred entered the premises and asked Rose to accompany him on a date that evening, an offer she accepted. Shortly thereafter, they began a relationship, with Fred becoming a frequent visitor at the caravan park, where he lived with 2 children from his first marriage to Catherine Rena Costello, a daughter Anne Marie and a stepdaughter Charmaine Rose. Became a willing childminder to Fred's daughters, who she noted were neglected and whom she initially treated with care and affection. On several occasions in the early days of their relationship, Rose insisted she and Fred take the girls on excursions to gather wildflowers. Within weeks on her first meeting of Fred, Rose left her job at the Pred Shop in order to become a full-time nanny to Fred's children. This decision was made with the agreement that Fred would provide her with sufficient money to give her parents on Fridays to convince them that she was still obtaining a salary at the bread shop. Several months later, Rose introduced Fred to her family, and who were aghast at their daughter's choice of partner. Rose's mother was unimpressed with Fred's boastful and arrogant behavior and correctly concluded he was a pathological liar. Her father vehemently disapproved of their relationship, threatening Fred directly and promising to call social services if he continued to associate with his daughter. Rose's parents forbade their daughter from dating Fred, but she defied their wishes, prompting them to visit the Gloucestershire Social Services to explain that their 15-year-old daughter was having a sexual relationship with an older man that they had heard rumors about, and that she began to engage in prostitution at Fred's caravan. In response, Rose was placed in a home for troubled teenagers. In August of 1969, only permitted to leave under controlled conditions, when allowed to return home to visit her parents on the weekend, Rose almost invariably took the opportunity to visit Fred instead. On her 16th birthday, Rose left home for the troubled teenagers to return to her parents while Fred was serving a 30-day sentence for theft and unpaid fines. Upon release, Rose left her parents' home to move in with Fred in a flat that he lived in. Shortly thereafter, Fred collected Charmaine and Anne from Marie from social services. Rose's father made one final effort to prevent his daughter from seeing Fred, and Rose was examined by a police surgeon in February of 1970, who confirmed that she was indeed pregnant at 15. In response to, Rose was once again placed in the care but was discharged on March 6 with the understanding that she would terminate her pregnancy and return to her family. Instead, Rose opted to live with Fred, resulting in her father forbidding his daughter from ever setting foot again in his household. 3 months later, the couple vacated the flat and relocated to ground floor flat at a 2-story house in Midland Road, Gloucestershire. On October 17th of 1970, Rose gave birth to their first child, a daughter. They named Heather Ann. Speculation remains that Heather may have been sired by Rose's own father due to the molestation that was going on. 2 months later, Fred was imprisoned for theft of car tires and vehicle tax disc. He remained in prison until June 24th of 1971. As he served the 6.5-month sentence, Rose, having just turned 17, looked after the 3 girls, with Charmaine, Anne, and Marie being told to refer to her, Rose, as their mother. Yikes. According to Anne-Marie, she and Charmaine were frequently subjected to extensive physical and emotional abuse throughout the time that they lived under Rose's care at the Midland Road. Although Anne and Marie were generally submissive and prone to display emotion in response to the abuse, Charmaine repeatedly infuriated Rose by her stoic refusal to either cry or display any sign of grief or certitude. No matter how severely she was treated, despite the years of neglect and abuse, Charmaine's spirit had not been broken, and she talked wistfully to Anne-Marie of the belief that she held that her mommy will come and save me. Anne-Marie later recollected her sister repeatedly antagonized Rose by making statements such as, "My real mommy wouldn't swear or shout at us," in response to Rose's scathing language. A child friend of Charmaine's named Tracy Giles, who also lived in the upper flat of Midland Road, would later collect an incident in which she had entered the West's flat only to see Charmaine naked and standing upon a chair, gagged with her hands bound behind her back with a belt, as Rose stood alongside the child with a large wooden spoon in her hand. According to Giles, Charmaine had been calm and unconcerned, while Anne-Marie had been standing by the door with a blank expression on her face. Hospital records reveal Charmaine had received treatment for several puncture wounds on her left ankle in the casualty unit of the Gloucestershire Royal Hospital on the 28th of March of 1971. The incident was also explained by Rose to have resulted from a household accident. Rose, who is believed to have murdered Charmaine shortly before Fred's prison release date on the 24th of June, 1971, she is known to have taken Charmaine and Anne Marie and Heather to visit Fred on June 15th. It is believed Charmaine was killed on very shortly after this date, as well as forensic odontology, confirming that Charmaine had died while Fred was still incarcerated. Further testimony from Tracy Giles' mother, Shirley, corroborated the fact that Charmaine had died before Fred's released. And in a later testimony at Rose's trial, Shirley stated that her two daughters had been playmates of Charmaine and Anne Marie when her family lived in the upper flat on 25th Midland Road in 1971. Shirley further stated that the family had vacated the upper flat in April of 1971. She had bought Tracy to visit Charmaine one day in June, only for Tracy to be told by Rose she's gone to live with her mother, and bloody good riddance to that. Wow. As well as with the Giles family, Rose explained Charmaine's disappearance to the others who inquired about her whereabouts, claiming that Fred's wife, Catherine Rena West, had taken her eldest daughter to live with her in Bristol. She informed staff of Charmaine's primary school that she and the child had moved with their mother in London. When Fred was released from prison on the 24th of June, he out Anne Marie's concerns for her sister's whereabouts by claiming her mother, Rena, had collected Charmaine and returned to their native Scotland land. Wow. The whole thing is just completely crazy and baffling to me. Shortly after the birth of Rose's second child, she began to work as a prostitute operating from the upstairs of their room on Cornwall Street and advertising her services in a local Contact magazine. Fred encouraged Rose to seek clients in Gloucestershire and West Indian community through these advertisements. In addition to Rose's prostitution, Rose engaged in casual sex with both male and female lodgers within their household and individuals Fred encountered via his work. She also bragged to several people that no man or woman would completely satisfy her. When engaging in sexual relations with the women, Rose could gradually increase the level of brutality in which she subjected her partner to, with acts such as partially suffocating her partner or inserting increasingly large dildos into the partner's body. If the woman resisted or expressed any pain or fear, this would greatly excite Rose, and who would typically ask, "Aren't you woman enough to take it?" Many of these women became apparent. Rose and her husband, who regularly participated in threesomes with his wife and her lover, took a particular pleasure from taking women beyond their sexual limits, typically via sessions involving bondage, fetishes, bestiality, and more.